Hi there. I have a really exciting story for us today. You see, recently we've been talking about what it means to be a Christian. A Christian can look at the world and think, do you know what? This world is broken. There are horrible things that are happening and they make us feel really sad. But if we're really honest with ourselves, we can look and see that we make mistakes too, and we're a bit messed up on the inside as well. Maybe we've not really thought much about how God wants us to live our lives. Or we know what some of the things are that God tells us to do, but we just really struggle to do those things. And we know that God hates the brokenness in our world. And He hates the mistakes that we make. But He loves us so much that when Jesus came to the world and died on the cross, He made it possible for us to be forgiven for those things because He was taking the punishment for them. When we come and we say sorry, we can be forgiven and we can be friends with God again, and one day we will be with Him forever and ever in that perfect and wonderful place called heaven. It's an incredible story. But does it make a difference right now? Does it make a difference to say that we follow Jesus and we want to live our lives by the rules that God has set because we know that He wants the very best for us? Well, I think it does, and Jesus told a story to help us to understand. You're going to love this one. It's a story of two men. One was wise, and one was foolish. But both men wanted to build a house. So the first man has a real plan, a good plan. He digs down into the ground until he gets to the rocks beneath the ground. It's solid there, and that's a really good place to start to build a strong and solid house. He lays a strong foundation of rock, and he builds his house. When the house is built, all of a sudden a storm happens. There's thunder and lightning and rain. But you know what? Because his house is so strong that even when the waters rise and the floods come up, his house stands strong. The foolish man, he also decides to build a house. But he doesn't have time to dig underneath the ground to get to the solid rock. So he just thinks, well, I'll just build it here on this sand. It's moving a little bit, but it'll be fine. And so he builds a beautiful house. Guess what happens? The storms come, and the rains pour down, and the floods come up. But the house that was built on the sandy foundation, not solid, well, it falls flat. It doesn't stand up to the storm. But what does this story mean? Well, thankfully, Jesus explains the story for us. You see, these two men, the wise man and the foolish man, they both hear God's words. But what's the difference between them? The wise man hears God's words and obeys them. The foolish man, he hears the words and he says, no, that's not for me, and he doesn't obey. And it makes a big difference to their houses. We're not building houses, but it's talking to us about the way we live our lives. We hear God's words in this book, the Bible. But when we hear them, we have a choice to make. Will we obey them, or will we choose not to obey them? And that will make a big difference in our lives, especially when the storms come. Those are the times that are difficult, times that we don't enjoy. Let me try and explain it like this. Supposing your teacher leaves your class at school some work to do, and then has to pop out on a message. And the longer your teacher is out, the more noisy the class becomes, until your teacher comes back and the class is so noisy that the teacher gets really cross. Now suppose you've built your life on this book. Then you will know that it says when you do your work, do it to the best of your ability, as if you were doing it for God and not for people. Your teacher is going to know that if you have lived by that rule, then you probably weren't one of the ones who was causing trouble in the class. And your house will stand when that storm comes. Or what about if one of your friends goes to their school bag one day and realizes, somebody took my snack? And they come to you and they say, was it you? Well, that could be a storm. But if you've lived your life by this book, then you will know that it says, don't tell lies and don't take something that doesn't belong to you without permission. And if you've lived your life by those rules, then your friend will know that when you say, no, it wasn't me, that they can trust you. And your house stands strong. What about when difficult things are happening in your family? Things that make you feel sad or worried or scared? Well, if you read this book, then you'll know that it says that God is close to those who feel brokenhearted. And it also says, cast your cares on him. That means talk to him about the things that worry you, the things that concern you, the things that make you feel sad. And he hears and he will listen and he will give you peace. Your house will stand. What about when somebody hurts you? That's a bad storm. That's really not nice at all, is it? Are you able to forgive the person who hurt you? Are you able to wish good for those who do bad things to you? Well, that's really hard. And we have a choice to make. But remember that if you love Jesus and you're following God's words, then you have him with you and he's strong and he can help you to make the right and the wise choice. What's your choice today? To hear what God says and obey? Or to hear what God says and think, that's not for me? It will make a big difference. See you again next week.